Good day, grade 9 students. I am Mr. Christian Stephen Marquez and I will be your science teacher. How are you today? Are you ready to learn new science concepts? Great, that's good to hear. At this video lesson, you will be able to identify the parts of the human respiratory system and describe the function of each part of the human respiratory system. Let us start our lesson by looking at this picture of ecosystem. Can you still recall, aside from food and water, what else is needed by these animals to sustain life? Did you say oxygen? Yes, you are correct. Different animals can breathe in different ways. Can you identify how this animal breathes? How do you think the fish obtain oxygen from its environment? Did you say using its gills? Yes, you are correct. Fish breathe underwater using the oxygen that is dissolved in water. But to absorb oxygen from water, fish uses special organs called gills. How about these insects? How do they breathe? Correct! They breathe through openings in the thorax and abdomen called spiracles. How about this earthworm? How does it breathe? Did you say through its skin? Very good! Unlike fishes, earthworms do not have gills. Instead, they breathe through their skin. Their skin needs to stay moist to allow the passage of dissolved oxygen into the bloodstream. Now we learn that different animals can obtain oxygen in different ways. But why do we need oxygen in our body? Do you have any idea? Very good. You are right. We need oxygen to release the energy from the food we eat. Because food plus oxygen is equal to energy. Now that we learn how other animals get oxygen from its environment, do you know how humans breathe? Did I hear through your lungs? Great! Humans breathe through the series of interconnected organs called respiratory system, and lungs are included in the respiratory system. But what really is respiratory system and what is its main function? Do you have any idea? Great! The respiratory system is the network of organs and tissues that help you breathe. This system helps your body absorb oxygen from the air so your organs can work. It also cleans waste gases such as carbon dioxide from your blood. As we can see in this illustration, to the left, we breathe in or inhale oxygen, and to the right of the illustration, we breathe out or exhale carbon dioxide. Now that we know what is respiratory system and its main function, let us now identify each part and its individual function. The illustration tells us that respiratory system has several parts. Can you read each part? Very good. Let's do it again. The parts of the respiratory system are the nose, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, lung. Inside the lungs are the bronchioles, At the end of the bronchioles are alveoli and the diaphragm. Since we already know the parts of the respiratory system, let us discuss in detail each part and function. But before that, I want you to look at this blinking dot, which will serve as an oxygen gas and will help us identify the part and its function as it travels inside the respiratory system. The first destination of the oxygen gas is inside the nose, through the two openings called nostrils. Can you see the tiny hairs are present inside the nostrils? What do you think is the purpose of these hairs? Correct! Coarse hair in the nostrils trap dust and dirt particles that is present in the air we breathe. The oxygen from the nostrils then travels to the next part of the respiratory system. Can you recall this part? Very good! It is the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity serves as channel for airflow through the nose, in which the air is warmed, cleaned, and moistened. But how do you think the air is warmed in the nasal cavity? If we zoom a little bit closer, we can see that the nasal cavity is surrounded by blood vessels called capillaries. These blood vessels help the air in the nasal cavity to be warmed and moistened. And if we zoom a little bit closer in microscopic level, we can see that the nasal cavity is also lined with these structures called cilia and mucous membrane. The mucous membrane helps in trapping foreign particles such as dust and bacteria, while the cilia, the microscopic hair-like structure, help sweep the foreign particles out of the respiratory system. After the air is warmed, cleaned, and moistened in the nasal cavity, it now moves to the next part. Do you know what is that part? Yes, the pharynx. The pharynx is a common passageway for both food and air. It leads to the two passages, which are the esophagus and trachea. It is also the reason why we can breathe through our mouth. However, it is not advisable to breathe using our mouth, because the air will not be warmed, cleaned, and moistened. Thus, we are more prone to respiratory illnesses. If you may recall, in grade 8, before food enters the esophagus, a special flap of tissue closes the entrance to the rest of the respiratory system. Can you remember the name of this flap of tissue? Nice! It is the epiglottis. Let us look at how it works when we swallow food. We can see that the entrance of air to the respiratory system is blocked by epiglottis. This is to ensure that no food will enter the respiratory tract because it can be dangerous to us. Where is the next stop of oxygen after passing through the pharynx and epiglottis? Excellent! The oxygen now enters larynx. The larynx is a tough, flexible segment of respiratory tract. The larynx is also known as the voice box. Did you know why? Yes, because it contains the vocal cords that produces sound of speech and singing. We can see in the illustration the laryngoscopic view, which reveals us that the vocal cords vibrates to produce sound. You can feel this vibration when you hold your Adam's apple as you speak. Come on, try it. Did you feel the vibration? Nice! Now that the oxygen passed through the larynx or voice box, it is now ready to go to the next part. What is that part again? Trachea. Very good. The trachea looks like a vacuum cleaner hose which serves as the main passageway to the lungs. The trachea contains C-shaped cartilage which makes it flexible enough to keep the passageway open for air. The trachea is also known as the windpipe. Zooming in again in microscopic level, we can see that the trachea is also lined with mucous membrane and cilia. Do you still remember the function of mucous membrane and cilia? Nice recall! The two help to trap foreign particles in the air to ensure that the air which will enter the lungs is clean. Before oxygen enters the lungs, it reaches a place where the trachea branches into two tubes. Do you still remember these two tubes? Great! These two tubes are the bronchi. The left bronchus enters the left lung and the right bronchus enters the right lung. We can see the branching of trachea in this illustration. The bronchi continue to divide again and again, becoming narrower each time until they appear like tiny tubes the size of twigs. Do you know what it is called? Very good. It is called bronchiole. At the end of every bronchiole are hundreds of round air sacs that resembles cluster of grapes on a stem. These air sacs are the last destination of the oxygen gas in the respiratory system. Do you still remember its name? Excellent! These grape-like structures are called alveoli. These are also the area where gas exchange occurs, as we can see in the illustration. The red dots represents oxygen inside the alveolus which is going to enter our bloodstream, while the blue dots represent the carbon dioxide which are escaping from the bloodstream in the process called diffusion. That's it! We witness the journey of oxygen gas as it enters the respiratory system. But wait! Did we forget some parts? Yes! The lungs and the diaphragm. The lungs are the main organ of respiratory system located in the chest cavity. These are sponge-like organs because air sacs or alveoli are present here. The oxygen gas started to enter the lungs when it leaves the two main bronchi and travels to the bronchioles and alveoli. While the diaphragm is located below the lungs, is the major muscle of respiration. It is a large dome-shaped muscle that contracts rhythmically. Without the diaphragm, air cannot enter or exit the respiratory system. Let us take a look at my lungs and diaphragm. We can see that when the diaphragm moves down, the lungs expands because air rushes in. And when it turns to its original position, air in the lungs rushes out. That's it! We identified and described each part of the respiratory system. Did you understand and learn from our lesson about the respiratory system? That's good to hear! Once again, let us enumerate the parts of the respiratory system. The parts of the respiratory system are the nose, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, lung. Inside the lungs are the bronchioles. At the end of the bronchioles are alveoli and the diaphragm. Can you now identify the parts of the respiratory system and describe its function on your own? Very good! Let us now see if you really learned from today's lesson. Using the link below, answer this activity sheet. I will give you 10 minutes to finish your work. I hope that you learned from this lesson. Once again, I am Christian Stephen Marquez, and see you next time.